prescription. It's more cowbell.
We are talking about the movie Sea Fever. This one is directed and written by Nisa Hardiman in her directorial movie debut. She has done a bunch of TV before, including directing episodes of Jessica Jones. And this one stars Dougray Scott and Connie Nielsen. And it focuses on this crew of this fishing boats that go out in the ocean somewhere to obviously fish, and they actually take on this scientist who is doing some research into abnormalities and things like this. This young female scientist who is a little bit of a loner, a little bit of a lone wolf. Anyway, they decide to go into some restricted fishing water, and there they discover some type of aqua-based creature, unknown species, that attacks their boat. Not only that, it seems to produce some type of parasite that gets into the water, the kind of obviously the drinking water system of the ship, and it infects various crew members. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So this movie has been compared to the likes of Alien and The Thing. I would say people need to watch more movies. Although there are elements of those things, there are much more accurate comparisons if you look beyond the mainstream. This is very reminiscent of the movie Harbinger Down, also known as Inanimate, that stars Lance Henriksen, that came out a few years ago. You can also, a more accurate description, maybe in the likes of a Leviathan meets the kind of the Jamie Lee Curtis Virus movie, something along the lines of that, really. So, first of all, what works for this movie? So this is a very taut and scientifically based kind of horror movie. So I really like the fact that the use of science here is based very much on kind of real world science rather than kind of pseudoscience and stuff like that. They're trying to keep it, you know, as accurate as possible, using the correct terminology and things like this. Reading about this movie, a lot of research was done to try and make it, you know, as scientifically plausible as possible, which I thought was fantastic. The movie knows its limitations. It's not a huge budget movie, so it doesn't try to kind of overextend itself by having elaborate kind of special effects sequences, but the ones that it does have work very well. We only really ever see glimpses of this potentially ginormous creature beneath the surface, but nonetheless it's enough to make you scared. It's enough to kind of like thinking, oh, I wouldn't want to get too close to that. And what we do see is done to a very high standard here. Also, the kind of the effects of this virus ends up being particularly kind of gory and very gruesome in a lot of ways. The cast here, I feel, is very good. Everyone does a kind of a great job of portraying like their realistic characters. Our scientist, for example, is this young girl who obviously has some kind of anxiety in regards to social situations, but she's a likeable and capable kind of protagonist who does kind of end up becoming a little bit more bonded to her more rugged, kind of salty sea mates. These are all played very well by the actors, you know, I say Dougray Scott and Connie Nielsen being the kind of the two kind of like leads, I suppose. And they do a great job of making believable and, you know, believable characters. I feel the kind of like the set design and kind of the location shooting here, all fantastic, leads to a very kind of lived-in feel, and you know, you do feel like the salt on your face and things like that. You feel this is they are really taking a you know, quite the battering. And there are lots of kind of like small twists and turns in the movie, obviously with this kind of external threat, this potential biological entity that is invading their ship. Inevitably, tempers kind of heat up, and there are various kind of altercations between the crew members themselves. So all good stuff. Now, what doesn't work? Well, I've got to say, this is a very well-made film, considering it's a relatively low budget and a relatively inexperienced kind of writer-director here, albeit, you know, she has done quite a lot of TV. But I've got to say, it was to a high standard, so my critiques are relatively minor. I've got to say, maybe the story is somewhat kind of generic, I suppose, maybe not particularly original. We have seen movies very much like this. I've mentioned a couple, you know, and I guess you can say, oh, you know, it's like Alien, where you have these kind of like workmen and there's some type of alien force, you know, in a kind of a contained space. maybe that's the kind of the closest you'll get to anything. But there are themes here that you have seen before in movies. So the movie doesn't try to do anything particularly kind of original. It just is maybe something that you've seen before, but approached from a more subtle and subdued scientific approach. Like I've said, the movie I would most compare this to is definitely Harbinger Down, aka Inanimates. But that had a bit more kind of, you know, scary monsters and stuff. This tries to kind of like reel itself back a little bit. Any other critiques I would say, the editing is a little bit choppy here and there. Just to give you one example, we have a scene where we have a character fall overboard, and we see the kind of the tendrils of this creature kind of creep up behind him, and then it cuts to a reaction, and then it cuts back to the guy, and he's already gone under the waves. It's just like, you know, that was some poor editing choices there. So there's a few kind of like technical issues, for example, that I just kind of felt like it would have been a little bit more exciting had things been done slightly differently, or and stuff like that. So there's a few kind of like niggles in regards to some of the technical aspects. Sometimes it's a little underlit. I get it, we're supposed to be in the middle of the ocean at night. Obviously it's going to be kind of dark, but sometimes for a film you kind of have to try and write your way around it, in the fact to have these things kind of lit a little bit more so we can kind of see what's going on. It's not too bad. We're not talking, you know, Alien versus Predator 2 bad in regards to underlit here, but just you know, a few bits here and there. But overall, I've got to say, I thought this was a really enjoyable movie. I mean, I'm a sucker for aqua horror movies, sea monster films, things like that. And really, my critiques here, you know, aren't really all that big. I mean, would I like to have seen the monster? Yes. But I understand that obviously this is a budgetary restraint, and sometimes the use of subtlety can do, you know, can do more. We do see, you know, a reasonable amount, I suppose. So, but I think it's a good enough thing to use your imagination to imagine what this thing kind of looks like in its kind of full glory. We get an idea, but maybe part of me kind of wishes I could have seen more, but I understand the reasons why maybe you didn't. I have to say, unless you are really wanting just an out-and-out kind of like science fiction gross monster fest, then this one, I think, will tick the boxes of most people who like kind of aqua-based horror movie. I, for one, really enjoyed it and was kind of glued to the screen. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.